Ken in Florida, welcome to the program, Ken.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm not a regular listener, but my friend just sent me a video of the challenge to libertarians, and I host a podcast, Libertarian, so I figured I should accept your challenge. I don't know exactly what your issues are, so you'll have to tell me, but the one thing I noticed in the video is you mentioned conservatism, and right off the bat, let me tell you that being libertarian has nothing to do with being conservative. Now, there are a number of conservative libertarians, but that's not the premise of the Libertarian Party platform.
Okay. Now, do you believe in the concept of a free market?
Well, free market, to a certain extent, I believe in a fair market. I tend to lean left on the whole libertarian side of things. I believe in tariffs. I think we need to have tariffs in order to protect our country from foreign economics that could have devastating effects on our country, like we're seeing today. But within the United States, within our own borders, I think absolutely we should be able to trade freely.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about a different concept of. I mean, do you have a problem with government intervention in the market?
Oh yes, I think within our own country, within our own borders, yes, the government should not be interfering with our economy, picking winners, picking losers. Interfering with people's ability to make products.
No consumer protection laws. We should have no EPA.
Well, I see now. Now, I'm not against having laws to protect people, absolutely. Now, the EPA as a federal government agency, I don't think it's the best way to do that. I think we could have local, either state or county, agencies that could deal with things and look
Do you know
at
why?
the local
Do you know why we have the
issues
EPA?
of environment.
Do you know why we have the EPA?
No, go ahead. Why don't you tell me? Why don't you tell me?
I will tell you. Have you ever heard of
I'm sure you'd love to tell me.
I totally want to. I would love to tell you.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, if you want to get rid of the EPA, it's probably good to know why we have one. Are you familiar with the Cuyahoga River?
Okay. The Cuyahoga River. No, where is that?
It's in Ohio, and I think you should
Okay.
you should Google this because the
I never lived in Ohio, so I don't know.
Right. Well, the Cuyahoga River, after the fourth time, it literally caught on fire because of the amount of pollutants that were dumped into that river, despite the fact that there was a state agency that was supposed to protect the environment. This created such an outcry that Richard Nixon ended up one of the factors that led to the development of federal environmental protection standards. Because as you know...
there was a local state agency that just did nothing about this river catching on fire.
Well, state agencies couldn't handle it either. I mean, aside from the fact that that
Well, was there even a state agency? Did anybody try to create a state agency?
There was a state agency.
Did anybody...
Yes.
There was a state agency.
Indeed.
Well, see, now that just goes to show that even having government programs, we still are racked with all these environmental problems that are going on
in other words,
in this country. Even
with
the
EPA,
EPA
is actually
tons of environmental problems going on.
Yeah, but Ken, the EPA
and the environmental.
Hold on, Ken. Hold on for 1 second. Hold on, Ken. Yes, I understand. Government is corruptible. Everything's corruptible. But the point is that since the development of environmental protection laws via the EPA, we now have the Hudson River is cleaned. The Cuyahoga is now a live river as opposed to one that is so dead that it catches on fire. A body of water caught on fire. So the efficacy of the EPA is, I would submit, evidence number one as to why why we should have it, because it works. And what came before it didn't work.
It doesn't work, though. I mean, you want to talk about water catching on fire. The water that comes out of my sink catches on fire. And I'm sure the EPA has some, involvement in groundwater. and yet nothing is done about these things.
Actually, the
EPA allows for all sorts of
So are you advocating, Ken, let me see if I get this. Ken, hold on for a second. So you're advocating stricter rules on groundwater. If you're, why does your water catch on fire? Is it
No, what I'm advocating is we able to take a lawful cause of action against companies that are doing damage to our environment. So
yes.
if somebody is doing
and do you know what gives you those cause of actions?
I should be able to do a writ of cause of action and bring up the damages that these companies are causing in a court of law. But because these things are handled underneath a government agency, I'm no longer able to do that. The government agency gets to pick and choose how to respond to these issues.
Ken,
yes.
You really need to look into this a little bit, because there's two things that you're saying that is wrong. One, you're talking about tort actions. And those tort actions that are, in fact, taken now. In fact, I do a show with two tort attorneys who do exactly what you're talking about. And do you know what the basis of those actions are? In other words, do you know what laws they get? These companies that destroy the environment get sued under? Laws that are passed via regulations, via the EPA. So when you say you want less regulation, there is no tort action for you to go into a court of law and sue somebody against.
So you're saying that unless we have the EPA, these governments can come in and poison my land, and I can do nothing about it. That's what you're saying.
You have
no recourse.
You have far less recourse. Correct. You have far less recourse.
Yeah.
That's absolutely correct.
I would disagree with you on that.
Okay.
I would disagree with you on that because under action, if they damage my private property, then I have the right to sue them.
Is your well water your private property?
I don't need an EPA to do that.
Is your well water your private property? What if they?
No, my well water is not. I'm on city water.
What if they poisoned it down the road?
I'm on city water. It's controlled by the city. I can't sue the city.
Ken, you really, it's almost impossible to have this conversation with you because you don't know the basics of what you're talking about.
All right. Well, let's move on. Let's move past the EPA. What are your other concerns?
Let's talk about property rights. You think property rights should be absolute?
I believe yes. Property rights, things that are actually yours and owned, absolutely.
Absolutely. So in other words,
I think my.
So in other words, just for example,
I think my land, my car, all that stuff, yes.
Let's say you had a restaurant. Should the government be able to tell you that if you are open to the public that you should serve, that you cannot discriminate based on color? Is that okay for you? Is that an infringement on your property rights?
I believe in the right to refuse service to anyone. Having worked in the restaurant industry,
based on
I don't
color?
need to give a reason. I don't need to give a reason. I can just say,
can you put
I'm
a
not
sign up that says we will not serve black people?
I don't think that's a very good business model. But
that's not what I'm asking you.
Freedom of speech.
Oh, so you have
freedom of speech.
All right, so you believe in that? Okay, well, fair enough. I mean, most libertarians would agree with you, as far as I know. That's why they would consider
I don't think it's a good
the Civil Rights
idea.
Act. No, I understand.
I get it. But
I'm not saying that you're
racist.
racist.
The right to do that.
I'm saying that you believe in an absolute right to property, and you think that things like the Civil Rights Act are unconstitutional. That's fine. Okay. Now, let me ask you this: do you think that
if you're a public institution, then absolutely that would be
no, but the
incorrect.
Civil Rights Act applies to
private.
That
receives public funding.
Right, I get it.
Then I would think you would totally be in violation.
Well, no, you're also in violation if it's your restaurant. I mean, but I know that you disagree with that law. But
yeah.
But so you believe in absolute property rights. Do you think that it's right for the government to own all property?
do I think it's right for the government to own all property?
What would be the problem?
The government should not own all property.
Why?
Well, for a lot of reasons. Well, for starters, let's just take land, for example. Now, let's say I own a piece of land. Let's say it's out in the middle of nowhere. I've got 0 neighbors on either side of me. And I want to build an experimental house on there. Say I want to do this all natural, all green house that's completely self-sufficient, that isn't hooked up to city, water, power, electricity, any of that stuff. And I wanted to do that. I would not be able to do that unless I own my own private property, because I'd have to meet all these regulations that are in place for how a house should be built and this, that, and all the other things. There's no room for scientific improvement.
Do you have a problem with a corporation owning all property in this country? Single corporation.
I have a problem with anybody owning all property in the country. I don't care who it is. Nobody should own all the property.
Well, wait a second. Are you saying that our society should not allow for an individual to own all property in this country? In other words, let's say I'm Bill Gates. Let's say I'm Bill Gates. Let me ask you, I want to just ask you this for a second. I'm Bill Gates.
Yeah.
I have somehow magically been able to amass my fortune. I've been able to multiply it by 1,000, 2,000, 100,000.
Okay.
I have whatever.
All right.
Trillions of dollars. Should I be?
Okay.
Should I have my right to property infringed upon by not being able to buy up every single piece of property in this country?
I would say that's a tough one. I'd have to say, yeah. I'd have to say that yes, he could do that, but then where would everybody else live? We'd all have to.
Well, we'd all pay rent to him.
No, I wouldn't. I'd move.
Where would you move?
I'm sure a lot of people would. I'm sure a lot of people would. If Bill Gates made this the private country of Bill Gates,
I'm not asking whether or not you think.
I'm
not asking whether or not you think it would be an enjoyable place to live. I'm asking you, should, as a society, we allow for one person to own everything?
If he is willing to pay for the property and people are willing to sell it to him, I don't see the issue.
Okay.
I really don't. Would it be a fun place to live in? Absolutely not. That's why nobody should own all the property. But, if he can pull it off and everybody agrees to sell them their property, then I guess there's nothing we can do about that, can we?
Right. Okay.
Unless we want to say, hey, we don't like what you're doing, let's bust out guns and shoot you or throw you in jail or something.
So
but,
a corporation.
just for trying to
what if it was a corporation? What if it was Microsoft?
That's ridiculous.
What if Microsoft did it?
What if Microsoft did it?
No problem.
Yeah, the same thing. Corporations.
Well, why not the government?
I personally am against. I personally am against corporations. I would rather there not exist. The entities known as corporations, which only exist because of the government allows them to. I think we should have proprietorships, but or partnerships. But I'm totally against this limited liability thing.
Okay.
To tell you the truth.
All right. So you would strip away all institutions in this country. You can't have corporations.
I would.
Can't have unions.
I would. They have. Basically, it's set up in the Constitution that we can have corporations. I would rather do amendments to change that. I'm not personally a fan of that, but as it stands, the way our laws are today, we can have corporations. I would like to see corporations be liable for their actions. I think it's very unfortunate that we have these corporations.
You know how liability.
Liability.
You know where that liability comes from, right? Government intervening in the marketplace.
Right. That's where we have the lack of liability. That's where that comes from.
No. That's where liability
because proprietorships and partnerships are fully liable, but it's only LLCs and corporations that are free from liability.
All right. Well,
because
Ken,
the government
I got to jump.
Has laws that says so.
Ken, I got to jump.
All
I
right,
appreciate you calling in. Call back in. This was the
no problem.
All right. Thanks, buddy.